The night was quiet, and the wind moved slowly across the barren land. There was nothing but rocks, dust, and broken pieces of the old world in this emptiness. A small hand moved weakly under a pile of dirt. The hand was trembling, scratching, trying to escape, but too weak to break free. Beneath the dirt lay a little alien girl, her skin pale with faint silver glow. Her stepmother had buried her there, leaving her to die without pity. Her breath was shallow, her chest rising and falling with great struggle. She tried to cry, but the earth pressed against her mouth, silencing her voice. Her mind was fading, her thoughts breaking apart like shattered glass. Still, deep inside, she did not want to give up. Her mother's face came into her memory, soft and kind, telling her once, "Your voice is your strength. Never forget that." With what little power she had left, the girl opened her mouth. A weak sound escaped, not loud, but strange. It was not just a cry, it was a vibration that traveled through the air and earth. Far away, a lone human traveler walked across the wasteland, his boots pressed against the dry ground, leaving no sound but dust behind. He was tired, his cloak torn from long journeys, his eyes sharp but weary. He thought the night would be silent, yet suddenly he froze. A whisper touched his ears. Soft, broken, almost impossible to hear. It was not the sound of wind, nor the cry of an animal. It was something else, something calling. Desperate, afraid, he turned his head. Scanning the land around him, the whisper came again. Faint but pulling at his heart. He stepped closer, following the invisible thread of sound. At first, he thought he was imagining it. But the more he listened, the more certain he became. Someone was crying beneath the earth. The human knelt down and pressed his ear to the ground. For a moment, silence, then yes. There it was, a soft voice, begging. His heart raced, his hands dug into the dirt. Dust filled the air as he pulled away stones and broken branches. The ground shifted, and he saw its small fingers pushing weakly against the soil. His breath caught. "A child," he whispered, shocked. He worked faster, pulling the dirt aside, his hands rough but careful. Soon, he uncovered a fragile face, silver eyes half closed. Glowing faintly in the darkness, her lips trembled, forming words that barely left her throat. "Help. Please." The human's chest tightened. This was no ordinary child. This was an alien girl, abandoned. Who could be so cruel as to bury a child alive? He lifted her gently from the ground, her body light and cold. She clung weakly to his cloak, her breath almost gone. For a moment he stood frozen, torn between fear and compassion. He was just a wanderer, alone, with no reason to get involved. Yet something in her voice had touched him. It was not just sound, it was more. It reached into his heart, refusing to let go. The wind grew stronger, carrying the distant echo of footsteps. The human's eyes narrowed, scanning the dark horizon. Someone was out there, searching, moving closer. He realized this was no accident. If the girl was left here to die, then her enemies would not stop until they were sure she was gone. The little girl's hand tightened weakly on his arm. Her glowing eyes looked at him, filled with fear but also hope. He whispered to her, his voice firm but gentle. "Don't worry, little one, I heard you." Her lips trembled again, and she breathed out a single word. "Stay." The sound echoed in his chest, stronger than any promise. He looked around once more, then pulled her close, wrapping his cloak around her. The dirt-covered child was no longer just a stranger. She was now a fragile life depending on him. The human took a deep breath, his heart heavy with the weight of choice. To walk away would be safe. To carry her would be dangerous. But something told him this meeting was not fate by chance. This was the beginning of something far greater. The footsteps grew louder, shadows moving against the night sky. The human stepped back into the rocks, hiding the girl in his arms, his eyes sharp, his body tense. He knew he had only moments before the hunters arrived. The little girl's voice, weak but steady, echoed again in his mind, and for the first time in many years, he felt a purpose burning inside him. The silence of the night was broken, not just by footsteps, not just by the wind, but by a promise, a human and a little alien girl, bound together by a voice too strong to be buried. Asterisk. The night air was heavy with silence, but the human's heart was racing. He pressed the child close to his chest, her breathing soft and broken. The dust clung to her skin, her hair tangled with earth, her glowing eyes half closed, yet they refused to give in to the darkness. He whispered again, "Stay with me." The girl blinked slowly, as if her strength was fading, her lips parted. A faint sound escaping, not loud, but clear enough for him to hear. It was not a normal cry. It was something deeper, like the earth itself was carrying her words, pulling them to his ears. The human's mind struggled to understand. She was no ordinary alien child. Her voice was different, powerful, almost alive even in weakness. It had found him in the endless night, and now it bound him to her fate. He shifted, hiding behind a large rock, his eyes scanning the land. Far in the distance, dark shapes moved across the dust, figures carrying lanterns that burned with cold blue light. They were searching, slow but steady, their shadows stretched long on the ground. Reaching like claws, the girl stirred in his arms, her small hand gripping his cloak. Her voice trembled as she spoke again, broken words. "Don't let them find me." The human's jaw tightened. "Who are they?" he whispered, but she was too weak to answer. Her body trembled, and he could feel her fear. Whatever those hunters were, they were not strangers to her. They were danger. He pulled her closer, his cloak wrapping her like a shield. The ground beneath his boots shifted, and he stepped carefully. He had to move before they caught him in the open. The wind carried the sound of voices now. Sharp, cold, and angry. He could not make out the words, but he understood the meaning. They were looking for the girl, and if they found her, there would be no mercy. The human moved through the rocks, quiet and quick. Each step was heavy with risk. The girl's voice echoed again, this time not through her lips, but through his chest. Like a vibration, soft but steady. "I don't want to die." The words pierced him like a blade. He had seen death. He had seen cruelty. But never before had a child's voice reached so deeply into his soul. He whispered back, "You won't," even as doubt pressed into his mind. How could he fight hunters in the night while carrying a fragile child? The girl's eyes fluttered open again, glowing faintly in the dark. She tried to speak, her words stumbling. "Mother said." My voice, strong. "Must hide it." The human frowned, his steps slowing. Hide it? What did that mean? But before he could ask more, her head dropped against his chest. Exhausted, the lanterns drew closer, and the hunter's steps echoed like drums across the wasteland. The human's breath was steady, but his eyes burned with focus. He found a narrow path between broken stones, a trail that led downward into shadow. He followed it, moving quickly but silently. The rocks closed in around him, hiding his form from the hunters above. The girl stirred again, whispering in her strange voice, "They won't stop until I'm gone." The human clenched his jaw. He didn't know who these hunters were or why they wanted her dead. But he knew one thing, leaving her behind was not an option. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. The rocks seemed to swallow sound, making every step echo louder than it should. He stopped for a moment, pressing his back against the stone. The hunters' lights passed above, their voices sharp and cruel. He held his breath, clutching the girl close. Her small heartbeat thudded weakly against his chest. When the danger passed for a moment, he looked down at her. "Why did your stepmother do this to you?" he whispered. The girl's lips moved slowly, her words faint. "She hates me. Says I'm cursed." Her silver eyes filled with tears. "She says my voice will bring ruin. That I should never have been born." The human felt a cold rage burn inside him. To bury a child alive, to call her cursed. No, this was not cruelty of an ordinary kind. This was fear of something powerful, something the girl carried within her. He knelt down, resting her against a rock. Her body was weak, her breaths shallow. He tore a strip of cloth from his cloak, dipping it into his canteen. He pressed the damp cloth against her lips. "Drink," he said softly. The girl sipped slowly, her hands trembling as she held the cloth. For a moment, her eyes met his, and he saw something more than fear. He saw a spark of strength, even. Buried under dirt, even hunted, she was still fighting to live. Her voice came again, soft but firm this time. "You heard me." "When no one else could," the human nodded. "I heard you, and I will not let them silence you again." The sound of rocks shifting above broke the moment. The hunters were circling back, their lights glowing brighter. The human rose quickly, pulling the girl back into his arms. This was only the beginning, he realized. The night would not end in peace, and whatever secret the child carried in her voice, it was dangerous enough to make her enemies stop at nothing. He glanced at the path ahead, shadows twisting deeper into the rocks, with one last look at the glowing lanterns above. He whispered a promise. "No matter what happens, I will keep you safe." The girl's eyes closed again, but a faint smile touched her lips. Her whisper, carried by dust and silence, echoed in his heart. "Thank you." And as the hunters closed in, the human stepped deeper into the darkness, carrying not just a child, but a voice that could not be buried. The night pressed down heavy, and the narrow stone path twisted deeper into the earth. The human carried the little alien girl in his arms, his steps careful but quick. Her body felt light, too light, as if life was slowly slipping away. Silver eyes opened for only seconds at a time before closing again, but even in weakness, her voice lingered in the air like a faint song. Above them, the hunters' lanterns glowed cold against the rocks. Their footsteps echoed like thunder, closing in with each passing moment. The human's heart pounded, his breath steady but fast. He had lived through battles, storms, and hunger, but this was different. He was not only fighting for his life, he was carrying another's, a child, fragile and hunted, who trusted him without question. The path opened into a wider cave, its ceiling jagged and dripping with moisture. The air smelled damp, filled with echoes of distant water. The human placed the girl gently on the ground. Her small hand clutched his wrist, refusing to let go. "Don't leave me," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. He shook his head, his voice low and steady. "I won't, little one, but I need you to be quiet now. They are close." Her glowing eyes blinked once, trusting him, and she pressed her face against his cloak, hiding her light. The human crouched near the cave entrance, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. The hunters' voices carried down into the cave, sharp and cruel. "Find her," one growled, his tone heavy with hate. "She must not live," another hissed. Their shadows stretched across the stone walls, long and twisted like monsters. The human's jaw tightened. He could fight men, yes, but these were not ordinary hunters. Their movements were too precise, their voices too sharp. He sensed darkness in them, a hatred that was more than human. He stepped back into the shadows, pulling the girl close once again. The hunters entered the cave, their blue lanterns lighting the stone with eerie glow. The girl trembled, her small voice whispering inside his chest rather than through the air. "They smell me. They always smell me." The human's heart sank. How could he hide her from hunters who could sense her so easily? But then, the thought struck him, if they could smell her, perhaps her voice could also confuse them. He leaned close, whispering into her ear, "Can you send your voice away from us, farther?" Her eyes opened weakly, silver sparks flickering. She nodded slowly, though her body shook with effort. She closed her eyes, her lips moving softly. A faint vibration hummed through the cave, and then, like a wind, it drifted to the far side of the cavern. The hunters froze, their heads snapping toward the sound. "There!" one shouted, racing deeper into the cave. The others followed, their lanterns swinging wildly. The human wasted no time. He lifted the girl and slipped into a narrow crack in the stone wall. The passage was tight, barely wide enough for his shoulders, but it was dark, hidden, and silent. He pressed forward, step by step. Each movement slow but steady. Behind them, the hunter's shouts echoed. "Find her! She is close!" The girl coughed weakly against his chest, her glow dimming, her strength nearly gone. The human whispered, "Hold on, little one. We are not safe yet." She answered in broken words. "I tried. Too weak." Her eyes closed again, her body limp. Fear stabbed at his heart. He pressed his forehead against hers, whispering with firm voice, "You are stronger than you believe. Stay with me, your voice saved us." The passage opened suddenly into a hidden chamber. A pool of water glowed faintly with light, reflecting from strange crystals. The air was cool, cleaner than outside. The human placed her gently on the stone near the water's edge. He cupped water in his hands and pressed it against her lips. She drank slowly, her breathing easing slightly. Her silver eyes flickered open, meeting his. "You didn't leave me," she said softly. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. "I told you, I won't." But before he could rest, a sound pierced the chamber. The hunters had discovered the narrow crack. Their voices echoed with rage. "She cannot escape." Not this time. The human's hand went to his blade once more. His eyes sharp, his body ready. He knew he could not outrun them forever. At some point, he would have to fight. The girl reached for his hand, her voice trembling. "They will kill you. Because of me." He shook his head firmly. "They will not touch you, not while I still breathe." The hunters' shadows filled the chamber entrance, their lanterns casting long, twisted shapes across the stone. Their leader stepped forward, his eyes burning with cruel fire. "There she is," he growled, his voice echoing like thunder. "Give us the cursed child, human, and we will let you live." The human's grip on his blade tightened, his stance firm, his voice cold as he answered, "You buried a child in the dirt, and you think I would hand her back to you?" The hunters sneered, their teeth flashing in the blue glow. "Then you will die with her." The little alien girl clutched his arm, her eyes glowing brighter than before. Her voice, though weak, vibrated through the chamber. Not loud, not strong, but clear enough. "I don't want to die. I want to live." The human felt her voice surge through him like fire. His fear burned away, replaced with unshakable resolve. He stepped forward, blade ready. Between him and the girl stood a wall of enemies. But behind him, for the first time in her life, the little alien girl had someone who would not abandon her. The hunters moved in, their shadows sharp, their voices filled with hate. The human raised his blade, his eyes locked on theirs. The fight for her life and his was about to begin. The chamber shook with the sound of approaching hunters. Their lanterns cast sharp blue light against the stone walls. Shadows stretched long, reaching like claws toward the human and the child. The human stood tall, blade steady in his hand, his breath calm but heavy. The little alien girl clung to his cloak, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dark. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his face twisted with cruelty. He raised his hand, and the others halted, waiting for his order. "Human," the leader said, his voice low but sharp like broken steel. "You carry something that is not yours." The human's eyes narrowed, his grip on the blade tightening. "She is not a thing," he answered firmly. "She is a child, and I will not give her back to monsters like you." The hunters hissed, their voices echoing like snakes in the cave. "She is cursed," the leader snarled. "Her voice brings ruin. Her existence is forbidden. Her stepmother commanded it so." The little girl trembled, her lips moving softly. "She hates me," she whispered, her words breaking. The human looked down at her, his expression firm and steady. "Then she will never have you again," the hunters roared. Rushing forward with weapons raised, the human moved quickly, his blade flashing in the blue glow. Steel clashed against steel, sparks flying in the chamber. He ducked, swung, and pushed back against the first attacker. But there were too many, surrounding him, pressing closer. The girl's hands shook, her voice trembling as she whispered, I don't want him to die because of me." Her chest rose sharply, her breath heavy. Then without warning her voice broke free, not loud, not screaming, but deep and powerful. It spread through the air like a wave, shaking the walls. The hunters froze, their eyes wide, covering their ears. Their weapons trembled in their hands as the sound pressed against them. The human felt it too, a vibration running through his bones. But for him, it was not pain, it was strength. The girl's voice flowed into him, steady and strong. He moved. Again, faster this time, his blade striking with precision. The hunters staggered back, their lines broken. The leader shouted in rage, "Silence her! End this now!" But the girl's voice grew brighter, shimmering through the chamber. The crystals around the pool glowed in answer. The water rippled, though no hand touched it. Her silver eyes opened wide, filled with tears, but also with fire. "I don't want to be buried. I don't want to disappear," she cried. Her voice shook the ground. Dust falling from the ceiling. The hunters stumbled, some dropping their weapons. The human took the chance, striking hard, forcing them back. The leader, furious, raised his hand and hurled a spear of dark energy. The human spun, shielding the girl with his cloak. The spear struck stone, exploding into shards. The girl screamed, her voice breaking into a sharp wave of sound. The shards froze in the air, hanging like glass caught in invisible strings. Then they shattered in the opposite direction, striking the hunters instead. The chamber fell silent, except for heavy breathing. The human lowered his blade slowly, his eyes turning to the girl. She trembled, her small body shaking. I didn't mean to," she whispered. Tears ran down her glowing cheeks. "I don't know how. It just happens when I'm scared." The human knelt beside her, his voice calm and steady. "You saved me, little one, and you saved yourself." Her eyes widened, her lips trembling. "But Mother said my voice is evil." "She said it destroys, not saves." The human shook his head, wiping the dirt gently from her cheek. "Your voice is not evil, it is power, and power can be used to destroy or to protect." He looked into her glowing eyes, his tone firm. "You chose to protect, that is what makes you different." The girl's hands gripped his cloak tightly. "No one ever said that before," she whispered, her words soft but filled with wonder. For the first time she felt her gift was not a curse, but something that mattered, something that could save. The hunters, broken and wounded, began to retreat. The leader glared at them with hate burning in his eyes. "This is not the end, human," he spat. "She belongs to us. Her voice will bring the ruin written in stars." The human rose, stepping between the child and the retreating hunters. "If ruin comes, it will be to those who buried her, not to her." His voice was sharp as steel, cutting through the chamber. The hunters vanished into the shadows, leaving silence behind. The girl leaned against him, her small body heavy with exhaustion. She whispered faintly, Why did you help me? You don't even know me." The human looked at her with tired but steady eyes. "I heard you when no one else did," he answered. "And that was enough." The girl closed her eyes, her breath slow but calm. The cave crystals dimmed again, the water settling to stillness. The human lifted her into his arms once more. He glanced toward the darkness where the hunters had vanished. He knew they would return, stronger and angrier. And he knew the stepmother's shadow stretched far across this land. But he also knew something else now. This child was not just a victim, not just a weak little girl. She carried a secret, a voice that could change everything, whether for ruin or salvation. That choice would be hers, and he had already chosen to stand at her side. Together, they stepped deeper into the cave, their shadows moving side by side across the stone walls. The silence was no longer empty. It carried a promise, unspoken but clear. Her voice was not buried anymore. It was alive, and it would be heard. The cave was silent after the hunters fled, but the human knew it was not victory. It was only a pause, a breath before the storm returned. He carried the little alien girl once again, her small body resting against his chest. Her breathing was slow but steady now, though her silver eyes flickered with worry. "They will come back," she whispered, her voice trembling like a broken string. The human nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, they will, and we cannot stay here." He glanced at the glowing crystals above them, their light fading slowly. Even the cave seemed to agree. The safety was temporary, fragile like glass. The human moved deeper into the tunnels, his boots quiet against the damp stone. The girl stirred in his arms, her fingers clutching at his cloak. "Why do they want me?" she asked, her eyes wide with fear. The human hesitated, his mind heavy with questions. "I don't know yet," he answered honestly. "But I do know this: they fear your voice, and people fear what they cannot control." The girl lowered her head, her glow dimming. "Mother said the same. That I bring danger, that everyone who hears me will suffer." The human's voice grew firm, calm but sharp. "Your mother was wrong. Little one, your voice saved us. It is not a curse, it is life." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Softly, for the first time, she wanted to believe those words. The tunnel split into two paths, one narrow and dark, the other wide and sloping upward. The human paused, listening. From the wide path came faint echoes, voices, heavy footsteps. The hunters were already circling back. Faster than expected, he turned into the narrow tunnel, his shoulders brushing against the stone walls. The air grew colder, damp with mist. Every step was a gamble, but stopping meant death. Behind them, the hunters' voices rang out, louder now. "She cannot hide, not from us." Their blue lanterns flickered, faint glows bouncing against the stone. The girl buried her face against the human's chest, her whisper shaking. "They're close. Too close." The human's eyes narrowed. "Then we must keep moving," he said. But even as he spoke, he knew the tunnel would not protect them for long. The passage opened into a cavern filled with broken pillars, ancient ruins scattered like bones of a forgotten world. The human stepped carefully, hiding behind the stone remains. The girl's voice trembled again. "They know these caves. They've hunted me before." The human glanced at her, shocked. "This is not the first time?" She shook her head weakly. "Mother always told them where I was. I never escaped far." Anger flared inside him. To betray a child like this, to hand her over again and again. Her stepmother was not just cruel, she was determined to erase her. The human clenched his jaw, his decision firmer than ever. "This time is different. Little one, I am here now." But the hunters were relentless, their shadows flickering. At the cavern's edge, the leader's voice echoed through the ruins. "You cannot hide forever, human. The child is doomed by the stars themselves." The girl flinched, pressing her small hands over her ears, her silver eyes filled with fear. And guilt. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am cursed. The human knelt quickly, meeting her gaze. "No, listen to me. If you were cursed, I would not be here. I would not fight for you." He placed his hand gently on her shoulder, steady and firm. "You are not cursed. You are chosen. Your voice is a gift, not a burden." The girl's tears glowed faintly in the dim light. She nodded slowly, clutching his hand as if it were the only anchor she had left. But the moment of peace shattered when a spear of energy shot past. It struck a pillar, exploding it into dust and shards. The hunters had found them, and they were no longer patient. The human pulled the girl behind a broken wall, the cavern filled with footsteps, blue lanterns swinging closer. The girl trembled, her breath short. "They'll kill you," she whispered. He shook his head sharply. "Not if we move, not if we fight together." Another spear flew, striking the stone near them. The human lifted his blade, ready, but the girl reached for his arm, her eyes glowing brighter than before. I can help," she said softly. Her voice shook the air, not loud, but strong enough to make the hunters pause. The ground itself seemed to hum in answer. The human looked at her, his heart pounding. "You're still weak, you can't." But she shook her head, firm despite her small frame. I won't be buried again. I won't hide forever." Her voice rose, soft but powerful. The crystals in the cavern flickered to life. Glowing brighter, the hunters staggered, their steps uneven, their hands covering their ears. The leader roared, "Silence her!" But the human moved forward, his blade flashing in the light. He struck with precision, each movement fueled by her voice. Together, they became more than prey. They became a force, a bond unbroken. The hunters pulled back, snarling, but not defeated. Their leader's eyes burned with fury. "This ends soon, child. Your gift will destroy you, and the human will fall with you." With that, they vanished into the shadows again, retreating but not gone. The girl collapsed against the human, her glow dimming once more. "I can't keep this up," she whispered weakly. He held her close, his voice steady despite the danger. "You don't have to do it alone, little one." He looked into the dark tunnels ahead, his eyes sharp. "They will keep coming, but so will we." Step by step, the cavern grew silent again, but it was not peace. It was the silence before another storm. The hunters were not finished, and neither was her stepmother. The human knew their pursuit would not end until the truth of her voice was revealed. Still, as he held the trembling child close, he whispered into the cold, "No matter the shadows, I will not let them take you." And the girl, though weak, whispered back, "Then I will not give up." Together, they stepped out of the ruins. The shadows followed, unseen but close. The pursuit had only begun, and the bond between human and alien child grew stronger with every breath. The night stretched on as the human carried the little alien girl through the winding tunnels. Her silver glow was dim, flickering like a candle fighting against the wind. She rested against his chest, her breath shallow but steady. Every step echoed in the silence, reminding him that the hunters could return at any moment. The human's eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow. He had faced many enemies before, but never like this. The girl was not just a child in danger, she was the key to something larger. Her voice, though fragile, had shaken caves, broken weapons, and turned hunters back, and yet, she did not believe in her own strength. She stirred slightly, her small hand clutching his cloak. Her whisper came, soft, trembling, "They won't stop, will they?" The human shook his head, his voice steady, "No, little one. They won't stop until they think you are gone." Her eyes closed for a moment, tears glistening on her pale skin. "Then maybe I should stop fighting. Maybe it would be easier." The human paused, kneeling so his eyes met hers. His voice grew firm, stronger than the silence around them. "Listen to me. Your voice is not meant to be buried. It is meant to be heard. You are alive for a reason, and as long as I stand, they will not take that from you." Her silver eyes blinked, filled with both fear and hope. She whispered faintly, "But I am so small, too weak." The human touched her shoulder gently. "You may be small, but strength is not always size, it is what you carry inside." Before she could answer, the sound of rushing footsteps filled the tunnels. Blue lanterns flickered in the distance, moving fast. The hunters had found them again, and this time, they came in greater numbers. The human rose quickly, pulling the girl into his arms once more. He ran through the twisting passages, his boots striking hard against the stone. But the echoes of pursuit grew louder, closer, unstoppable. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern filled with towering rock columns. Shadows danced across the walls as faint crystals glowed in the distance. The human set the girl down gently against one of the columns, his blade drawn, his eyes locked on the advancing lanterns. The hunters spread out, their leader's voice cold and sharp. "Nowhere left to run, human. Hand her over, and you may yet leave alive." The girl's small hands trembled as she looked up at him, her voice faint, broken. "They'll kill you if you fight them all." The human shook his head, his stance unshaken. "Then they will learn I don't fall easily." The hunters rushed forward, weapons gleaming in the cold glow. The human met them head-on, his blade flashing in the dim light. He struck, blocked, and turned aside their attacks, but there were Too many, surrounding him, pressing harder with every strike. He gritted his teeth, sweat dripping, his strength pushed to its limit. One blade grazed his arm, leaving a line of blood. Another strike knocked him back against the stone, his breath sharp and heavy. The girl cried out, her voice carrying through the cavern, "No!" Her silver eyes glowed brighter, tears streaming down her face. The sound was not just a cry, it was a wave of power. The ground trembled, the air shook, and the hunters staggered, covering their ears. The crystals in the cavern pulsed with light, echoing her voice. The vibration spread through stone and air, turning into force. Weapons cracked, lanterns shattered, and the hunters stumbled back. The human steadied himself, staring at the girl. In shock, her small frame stood tall now, her voice flowing through the cavern like a storm. She was no longer only afraid, her voice was filled with defiance. "I will not be buried again. I will not be silent." The cavern roared with her words, the air vibrating with power. The hunters fell to their knees, their faces twisted with pain and fear. The leader shouted, his voice breaking against her strength, "Silence her! Before she destroys us all." But even as he raised his weapon, the human struck. His blade moved with speed, fueled by the girl's power surging around him. He cut through the leader's guard, forcing him back. The other hunters scattered, disoriented. By the storm of sound, the girl's voice shifted. No longer wild but controlled, it flowed in rhythm, rising and falling like a song. The crystals glowed brighter, filling the cavern with light. The human felt the strength of her voice flow into him again. His strikes grew sharper, his stance unbreakable. Together, they fought not man and child, but as one force, her voice the shield and storm. His blade the strike of will. At last, the hunters broke. Stumbling back into the shadows, their leader glared with fury, clutching a wound on his arm. "This power will destroy her. Human, you cannot protect her forever," his words echoed. Before he vanished with the others, the cavern fell silent once more, the glow of crystals fading slowly. The girl collapsed, her glow dimming, her strength drained. The human rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. Her voice was faint. "Almost gone. I didn't mean to hurt them all." The human shook his head, his voice gentle but firm. "You didn't hurt. You defended. You protected. That strength inside you is not destruction. It is survival. It is hope." Her silver eyes blinked weakly, a soft smile forming. "For the first time, I don't feel cursed." The human pulled her close, his voice steady. "You were never cursed. Little one, you were always stronger than you knew." The cavern stood quiet around them, filled with the faint hum of her power. The hunters would return, yes, and the stepmother's shadow still lingered. But now, the girl was no longer just running. She had faced her fear, and her hidden strength had been revealed. The human lifted her once more, his steps echoing through the stone. He whispered into the night, a promise unbroken. "They will keep coming, but we will keep walking." The girl's voice, soft and tired, answered him, "And I will not be silent." Together, they stepped forward, deeper into the unknown. The night around them filled not with fear, but with the strength of a voice that could never be buried. Asterisk. The tunnels opened at last, spilling the human and the little alien girl into the night. Above them, the sky stretched wide, filled with stars burning like silver fire. The air was cold, carrying the taste of dust and smoke, yet it felt freer than the dark caves they had left behind. The human set the girl gently on a stone. Her silver eyes blinked at the sky, wide with wonder. "I thought I would never see this again," she whispered, her voice soft, trembling, but filled with hope. The human gave a small smile, his cloak wrapping around her thin frame. "You'll see much more than this, little one," he said firmly. "Your voice will no longer be hidden in the dark." But the moment of peace did not last long. A shadow moved on the horizon, rising like a storm against the starlight. The stepmother had come, her presence sharp and cruel. She was tall, draped in dark robes that shimmered with strange power. Her eyes glowed with cold fire, her voice cutting through the silence. "You should have stayed buried, child," she hissed. "Now you force me to finish this myself." The girl trembled, clutching the human's cloak. Her voice broke with fear. "She found us. She always finds me." The human stepped forward, his blade drawn. He stood like a wall between the stepmother and the child. "No more," he said, his voice steady as stone. "You buried her once, but tonight she stands with me." The stepmother's laugh was sharp, echoing like broken glass. "You are only a man, and she is nothing but a cursed mistake. Do you think your sword can stand against fate?" She raised her hand, shadows swirling around her like living smoke. The ground cracked, and the air filled with a dark hum. The girl cried out, her voice carrying against the night. "Stop! Please stop!" The vibration shook the stepmother's spell, but the woman only sneered. "Your voice cannot save you. It will destroy everything you touch." The girl's tears glowed against her cheeks. She looked up at the human, her lips trembling. "What if she's right? What if I hurt you?" The human knelt quickly, his hand steady on her shoulder, his voice calm, firm, but full of fire. "You don't hurt me, little one. You give me strength. I heard you when no one else would, and I will keep hearing you. Your voice is not a curse, it is a gift, and tonight the stars will hear it too." Her silver eyes widened, filled with both fear and hope. The stepmother roared, unleashing a wave of dark energy. The human stood tall, his blade cutting through the air, but the force struck hard, pushing him back against the rocks. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The girl cried out again, her voice surging. This time, it was not fear, it was defiance. Her voice rose into the sky, strong and clear. The ground shook, the stars seemed to tremble. The shadows around the stepmother broke apart, torn by the sound. The dark energy cracked and fell like shattered glass. The stepmother staggered, her eyes wide with fury. "No! You cannot control it!" she screamed, but the girl's voice only grew stronger, steadier. "I am not your mistake. I am not cursed." The human pushed forward, his blade flashing, with the girl's voice flowing around him like a storm. He struck against the stepmother's defense. Breaking through her shield of shadows, the woman stumbled back, her power faltering under the weight of sound and steel. The night roared with the girl's song, not of fear, but of freedom. And with one final strike, the human cut down the shadow that bound her. The stepmother fell, her scream fading into the dust, her power dissolved, leaving only silence. The girl collapsed into the human's arms, her glow flickering, her voice soft now, a whisper against his chest. "Is it over?" The human looked at the horizon where the shadows had vanished. "Yes," he said, his voice calm but sure. "She cannot hurt you anymore." The girl's silver eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not of fear, she whispered. "I'm free." The human nodded, holding her close, free and alive, and stronger than anyone believed. The night grew quiet again, the stars shining brighter. The girl lifted her gaze, her lips trembling into a small smile. "For so long, my voice only brought pain, but now it saved us." The human looked down at her, his eyes steady. "It saved us both, little one, and it will save more than us. It will bring hope." She leaned against him, her glow soft but peaceful. Her whisper came gentle, almost like a lullaby. "Will you stay, even now?" The human wrapped his cloak around her, his voice firm. "I will stay, always, for as long as you need me." The two walked into the dawn together, the shadows behind them, the light ahead. The girl's steps were small, her frame fragile, but her voice was alive, no longer buried, no longer silent. It hummed softly in the air, a song of survival, a song of a child who had been left under dirt, but found by a human who chose to listen. And in that voice, a new beginning was born, a beginning where fear could no longer bury her, a beginning where hope would rise louder than silence. Asterisk.